Hi, welcome to today's segment of OurVentura TV. My name is George Alger. Today we're going to be talking about podcasting. And our guest today is David Reel. Welcome, David.
Hey, George. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Good. So can we get a quick intro of you?
I am a historian, author, podcaster, and hopefully a future documentarian.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. What is podcasting?
Podcasting is essentially, it's just like radio, only not live. It can be live, but it's not live. And the way I work is I don't have a camera. I just have guests come on my show, and we talk about whatever the guest is. If it's a politician, then we talk about local political issues. If it's an actor, like I had an actor on the show a couple weeks ago, Dan Tullis, we talked about his career in acting. And I just like to talk about anything that I'm passionate about. Sports, acting, films, comedy, local issues, stuff like that.
Good. So you mentioned that it's like radio, but in this case, it's actually listened to in other ways other than radio, correct?
Yeah, you can put it on your website, you can put it on YouTube. There's all kinds of internet channels you can put it on there so viewers can subscribe and listen at their, whenever they want to.
Good. So for someone who is not really familiar with podcasting but likes radio, how do they find podcasting programs to listen to?
Well, you can look it up on the internet. If someone is interested in getting into podcasting, the first thing I would recommend would be get liability insurance. And the second thing I would recommend is find some sort of a attorney in entertainment so you don't get sued for whatever reason, just to cover your bases. And the next thing I would do would be go to a place that rents out equipment or can sell you equipment, such as 567 Podcast. That way you have really good equipment, headphones, mic, cameras if you need it, computer, any sort of sound. So the quality of the podcast is quite efficient.
Good. Now, in terms of the viewer, and let's just say they're interested in a topic of fishing, for instance. So you would suggest if they wanted to find out podcasts on fishing, they just simply search for that online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or just you can YouTube it. Ted Williams fishing.
Good.
Ted Williams baseball. Whatever. I mean, the YouTube is affiliated with Google, so it's essentially a search engine that will do it for you. You just have to turn the car on, and it'll take you there.
Good, and this brings up an interesting point too. So even though podcasting is traditionally associated with audio only like radio, really it does nowadays embrace video as well. Is that true?
It does embrace video. I don't have the money right now to have a cameraman, but what's nice about podcasting is you can have a live interview, and then if you can go back and edit it. So if someone drops some four-letter language on there that you think your viewers aren't going to like, or he makes a mistake, or he starts to cough or something like that, or wants to take a restroom break, you can splice the whole thing together, and it sounds just as natural as the way we're talking now.
Good. Okay, so you could certainly search on YouTube just specifically for podcasts, but in this case we're really looking at video interviews, or maybe maybe it's just a still picture up there promoting the show, but you're only hearing the audio. Would that be the case?
Correct.
Okay. So the main point, though, is for podcasting, we have a radio type environment, but sometimes there may be a video component as well.
Yes, right.
Okay, good. Do you happen to have any familiarity with the statistics of podcasting nowadays as opposed to the past? For instance, I've heard that podcasting is increasing.
Yeah, we're in the golden age of podcasting, kind of like radio was in the golden age back with Eddie Robinson and Jack Benny. According to the statistics I've read, it should basically peak by like 2023, 2024, somewhere in there. But it has just it's like an avalanche. I mean, everybody seems to be trying to do it now, and there's a lot of people that have no idea what it is. And it's just so simple, and it's just a great form of media to learn about things that you want to listen about, be it sports, movies, local politics, stuff like that. And a lot of times it's completely unedited. So I mean, if listening to someone freewheel speech with no sound bites in terms of you want to listen to a radio show and someone wants to use profanity on there and they want to hear it, by all means they can do it. So sometimes some podcasters don't even edit at all because they just so caution the wind.
Okay. Now, Does a podcast, or the definition of a podcast, presume that it's a host and a guest, or are there podcasts where it really is just someone expressing?
Absolutely. So you can have a podcast where you're just solo.
Okay.
Just talking to the mic about whatever you want to ramble about.
Good.
Yeah.
And it could also be maybe potentially a group of people.
You can have a group of people. You can have skits. You can write skits. You can write political skits. You can do your own version of Saturday Night Live. If you know people who can do accents or voices, you can do accents and voices that pertains to that particular skit.
So I get your analogy now on radio. It seems pretty apt. Anything you could imagine having heard on radio could be considered to be potentially an idea or a topic for podcasting.
Yes, you can even spoof yourself. Like if you are having trouble getting celebrity-like guests, you can have a good friend who's pretty calm behind the mic. And if you can do a voice impersonation of someone who's famous, you can have your friend host it and say something along the lines of, David Real, he can't get any good on the show today, but today we have Christopher Walken. And then you can have someone who do I'm Christopher Walken. You can have someone do that, and it can basically do a spoof on your own show. So who are you making fun of? You're making fun of yourself, but you're still getting laughs, and laughs is very important.
Cool. So you mentioned a few things about getting involved earlier. Could you mention any more things that a person should be aware of that might inspire them to get into it, or maybe even the opposites, things that they might want to be aware of that might suggest they shouldn't get involved with it?
Well, like I said, what's nice about podcasting is if you step on your toes, or you overstep your boundaries and stuff like that, you can always edit that part out and kind of splice it the way you want it, or you can just not air it. Just put it on a shelf someplace and just listen to it privately, so you don't get in trouble that way. I would, just to be safe, I would just get myself a good attorney to have in your back pocket to make sure you're covered in case someone does try to sue you, and make sure you have liability insurance.
Okay, and just as a quick comment on that, I mean, if someone's a guest on your show and they're speaking, why might they want to sue you?
Well, I mean, it's the culture we live in. So, I mean, you could have someone on a podcast who's filled out a release form and said, okay, I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about this, but for whatever reason, the topic goes away from that, and your guest goes on some sort of a sermon on something, and then you wrap up, and even though he signed it, he can always come back and say, well, this caused me great detrimental harm. This really embarrassed me. So, I mean, just the old saying, you can sue you for just about anything, but you can also keep them from winning.
Got it. Now, let's suppose someone is interested in becoming a podcaster, and let's say they get some insurance and they have some rudimentary equipment or whatever is necessary to get started. What would you suggest as a way to get their material listened to?
Social media. Put it out there on Instagram. Get followers, hashtags. Go on Facebook. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter would be the three big ones. Because at least especially on Twitter and Instagram, you can repost. And it's just snowballs. So more and more people see it and hit it, and you can put something on there like please share, or send this to your friends, which is a form of please sharing. You want it to snowball. The more people to listen to you, the better off you are. And there's some algorithm out there that if X amount of people hear you on YouTube and you have your own YouTube channel, then you can actually make a little bit of money.
Okay.
And there are people out there who are just social media wizards. I am not one of them. But there are social media wizards out there who literally make a lot of money just saying, hey, this is how you make soap, or this is how you make kitchen knives, or this is how you do that. But so many people watch them do this performance, or whatever they're good at, and they can actually live very comfortable in Southern California, just basically working part-time, making a lot of money based on social media and the hits you get.
Cool. But because a cautionary note, that's pretty unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhat, but I mean, they're out there.
Okay. I guess the point I'm not trying to make is that if someone was interested in podcasting, would you suggest they consider the possibility of making money as something that's highly likely or not so likely?
Depends on the quality of your guests, and I guess it kind of depends on the quality of your content. I mean, if you were to interview your neighbor on gardening, If nobody knows who your neighbor is, you probably won't get that many hits, even if your followers love gardening. But if you can interview someone like Kevin Costner and carry on a conversation for an hour about Dances with Wolves and working with Burt Lancaster, now you might be able to make some pretty good money.
Got it. Okay, good point. Speaking of length, you just mentioned an hour. Are there any standard lengths for a podcast?
What I try to do is, since I only have about 3,000 followers at the moment, I'm building on that. But what I try to do is I will interview somebody like, I interviewed Dan Tullis. He was on Harlem Nights and Showboat, deep baritone voice, sings Old Man River, just beautiful. We talked for 2 straight hours. But rather than put the whole 2 hours up on one clip, I'll just splice up in like 15 minutes. Because from what I've seen and read, more people don't want to listen to you for 2 straight hours, unless you are an Adam Carolla or someone who's really, a Katie Couric, someone who's really famous. If you're just, if you have a small market like myself, then I just splice up in 15 minutes. And you want to put it out there when people come home from work, when they can listen to it. Usually like at 5 o'clock is a good time to do it during the day.
Okay.
In the afternoon.
Good. All right, well, we're just about out of time. Is there a summating message you'd like to convey to the viewers and a website they could go to for more info?
Yeah, my website is David Real Writes, W-R-I-T-E-S, my first and last name, davidrealwrites.com. And I have acquired thousands of old photographs of Ventura County. And you can find me on Facebook at Historical Camarillo in Ventura County.
Great.
Yeah, and it's free, so anybody can surf it and check it out, and it's a lot of fun. So feel free to go on there and make comments.
Great. Well, thank you very much, David.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
This is George Alger signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Until we meet again.